Hello, everybody. Welcome to the second day of our CELUM. Welcome to the masterclasses. We are really happy that so many of you decided for our masterclass today. It's about CELUM and Frontify. So I hope, yes, we are back on our screen. In this masterclass, we will deep dive into the bigger brand experience, the bigger brand management picture. We give you some tactical insights into building a powerful branding tech stack, and you will discover how the partnership between CELUM and Frontify actually worked out, because it was highly announced in spring. And what are we doing today? I want to give you a short preview about our time together. Samuel will afterwards start talking about branding in general and how you can benefit from a branding system. Afterwards, we will talk about the integration itself, and Samuel will also show you some details about brand management platforms, how other customers implemented branding in their systems. And then we will go into a live demo of the integration and show you how the branding works, a little bit with the branding guidelines of our CELUM. And yes, the speakers, that's Samuel and me, Samuel from Frontify. Thank you for having you here with us today. And everybody who doesn't know me, I'm Melanie Schedl. I'm responsible for the CELUM marketplace and all its integrations and connectors. And I'm kind of an IT generalist. I like to see the big picture together with the customers. And for me, it's important not to have these individualized projects, but to see where can be the standards and force kind of standard products out of these individualized use cases. Yeah, and together with Briggs and Samuel, we decided for an integration, actually also our CEOs, and what the use cases for this integration can be. That's the reason why I'm here. And yes, Samuel, do you want to talk a little bit about yourself?
Thank you, yeah. Good morning, everybody, online, but also here in the room. My name is Samuel. I'm in charge of our technology integration partners, but also our ecosystem efforts. I joined Frontify about 3 years ago. Back then, we were not even 50 people. It's been a wild ride. Now we're more than 200 people. We have done 2 investment rounds. We have opened offices in New York, also in London. And yeah, it's been very interesting. I also want to say a big thank you to Melanie for doing this session together with me. Also the whole CELUM team for having us, inviting us. And you guys for getting up after a wild night last night. It was good fun. And yeah, really happy to be here. I think there is great synergies, as we will see throughout the presentation, between Frontify and CELUM, especially in the topics that we're going to talk about today. And as we'll see, Frontify, or brand management, as we say, is really about bringing people along on the journey, making it fun, making it engaging. And that's why we want to everybody to be part of this journey. And obviously, many of you guys have already been champions from the early ages about building these central sources of truths, especially in the context of assets. And we believe that's an essential part of building powerful brands. But it's not the only part. So let's maybe take a quick step back. What is branding anyways? What is a brand? We all know a brand is not a logo, it's not a visual identity, it's also not a product or a service. And I actually quite like this slightly provocative quote from a brand thinker called Robert Walker. Strictly seen, a brand does not exist. You can't put one in your pocket, grow it on a farm, put a fence around it, or leave it at a restaurant by accident. And this is why it's quite intangible, a brand. And at Frontify, we've decided that we just take a fairly simple definition. A brand is a collective impression of a product, company, or person. So when we say it's a collective impression, it means that it comes in the context of an ever-growing number of channels, online, offline, a growing number of brand touchpoints. Now, how can Frontify and CELUM help you in this context? Now, we always speak about these few people who define a brand. That's typically the people we sell to. It's brand managers. Sometimes it's a head of marketing or also design people who are in charge of the visual identity of a brand. But then we have everybody else. Everybody who lives a brand on a daily basis on all these touch points. It can be your sales team, it can be your customer success people, it can be the people working at the reception who interact with a multitude of also external partners and customers and so on and so forth. And every one of these touch points is a chance to build that brand reputation. And this is why we want to make it fun and engaging to do so. Now, what does this mean on a very tactical and day-to-day basis? I'm sure many of you have been in that situation where people are being asked for logos and the right formats of logos. So this self-service component of Frontify is really helpful. Then secondly, it's also about sharing best practices, instructions, what am I supposed to use in which context? It could be in social media or in other situations. Thirdly, it's also about templates, Office, PowerPoint, and whatnot, and making them available to people. On a fourth point, obviously also typography, fonts. When you work with the creative agencies, what are they supposed to use where? But also, if a new employee joins or somebody has a new MacBook or notebook, where do they find that information? And then, last but not least, another interesting example is stationery. As Melanie will show us, there is a very neat module that will help people self-serve either banners or business cards and so on and so forth. All right, now, how do these two systems actually work together? So you guys are all familiar with CELUM, and CELUM will always stay the single source of truth for assets. You can then simply decide which assets should be pushed into Frontify and then be reused. And within Frontify, we have different modules. The first one is always what we call brand guidelines, because that's where the brand identity starts. It's colors, it's typography, it's logos, and so on and so forth. But it doesn't stop there. So when we go into an organization, we often see they have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages of guidelines, usually in different folders and in different versions, and none of them probably correct, because they're all outdated at one point when they were sent over. And we really want to start by centralizing these guidelines and making them interactive, dynamic, appealing, searchable, and all these kind of things. And it's not just brand guidelines, right? It can be guidelines of how do you do signage on a building? How do you sign your trucks? How is a hotel room supposed to look? And always sharing these best practices in an easy way. Then the second part is obviously our digital asset management solution, or as we call it, different libraries, where we have, as we'll see, a very neat front end about that helps you surface assets to the users that will then be using them for different purposes. And there we usually separate out the media libraries for images and videos, but we also have a dedicated library for icons, which especially in digital touchpoints, in apps, in websites, are becoming more and more important. And then the last component, which I want to quickly highlight, is our templating tool, digital or print templates. Again, super easy to use and enabling, for example, local marketing organizations when they're doing a webinar and they need to translate certain elements, or they need to adjust the date or change a headshot or something like that, while always making sure that the end product is still on brand, right? Brand consistent. And same thing for business cards and simple print use cases. And all of these modules, we'll see them just now in a demo.
Yes, you've seen that there is a digital asset man component in Frontify, and also CELUM has a big digital asset man component. And so you may ask yourself, why have the two systems decided to work together? And beyond the obvious point that CELUM can be the single source of truth for assets and Frontify can be the single source of truth for brands, it's about products, it's about product experience and creating perfect product experience within the whole customer journey for the customers. And yes, we wanted with this integration to make it possible for our customers that they can show their products in a unique branding style to their end customers. And that is what is really important in this case, to make the product experience really consistent in every step of the customer journey. And that is where Frontify is lacking a little bit, to have the product assets there. And yes, it's also obvious that CELUM lacks a little bit in having these context information on the assets. Okay, yeah, you have it in the metadata, but not in this neat front-end style that Frontify offers. And that is the reason why there is the new integration, this smooth integration that was built by our partner Brix. And you can use the integration to combine the two platforms and ensure that all the assets that are within CELUM are transferred to Frontify within a defined scope. You can define that scope very neat, based on IDs, based on a specific search, also based on metadata. And with the integration, we ensure that all the assets are up to date all the time. All the asset updates triggered to Frontify, and even when there is an asset going out of scope or is being deleted, it's also, you can decide in the configuration if you want to delete it within Frontify or if you want to have it marked as expired. And this happens also when an asset expires in CELUM because of license rights, they are not anymore there, or because of other GDPR reasons. And yes, that is one point. You can really decide what assets do I want to have in Frontify, and all the assets that are there are actually in the right version there. And you can also add all the metadata there, title, description, keyword tags, everything that it's tagged automatically from CELUM is also there, all the copyright information, where is this asset in the workflow status? This is an information that is transferred. And all the other metadata that are relevant for you as customer can be decided to transfer to Frontify. This we will see that later. And in this way, you can deliver a consistent product assets, brand assets, and whatever you want in this case. You can even see within CELUM that the assets are transferred to Frontify. You can see the asset ID, so you can make sure where it is in Frontify. Yes, this implementation was developed by Brix. It's kind of part of the new Brix general connector that was implemented via the SDK and is the basis for other connections in this direction. And if you want to have more information, more technical and detailed information about that, there are listed 3 websites. The first 2 are kind of more the marketing and use case material. If you want to really deep dive into how to configure it, it's also there on the Brix website. Yes, and now it's time to jump right in. I want to hand over to Samuel for a little brand demo, and then we will take a look at the integration.
Cool, and I see nobody fell asleep during the theoretical part. It's like in school now, the fun begins, and I also hope that we can make this a bit interactive. If you have questions of why, how, whatnot, please ask them. Also for the people online, I don't know if we have somebody that receives the question, if somebody's writing in the chat. Okay, perfect. So as you will see, the way we present Frontify is probably fairly different from how CELUM is being presented, because our focus is really 90% on the end user experience. That means, you know, all of your employees or whomever will log into the system, interact with it, and it's not really the administrator. I will also show that part of how the thing is built out and so on, but the focus is really what can the end user experience be. So the first thing to say is it's all web-based. In the browser, you can access it from anywhere on different devices and so on and so forth. And here we're looking at an example from the Lufthansa Group, has been one of our earliest and is still one of our largest customers. And obviously single sign-on, but you can also distribute logins for external partners, for agencies, and so on. And depending on the access rights that you give, people will see different content within the portal, so it's perfectly personalizable. At the same time, Lufthansa also says that the public has a stake in their brand. That's why I can access without registration and see a part of what they have in the brand portal. And here we already see an example of a multi-brand instance. And this is always a big use case where, obviously, depending on what you're looking at, if you're looking at Austrian Airlines, Swiss Airlines, the Lufthansa Group, you want to have different access, different content in there. And I will later show you how this is built up, but it's basically all an inline editor. So it's super straightforward. You add a content block, you add imagery, you add text, and everything is live. Now, for first example, let's dive into the Lufthansa brand. And obviously, we have multi-language capability where content can be translated in as many languages as you would like. And this is what we usually call a cover page, where you can tease out content, update people. There might also be a launch video if there's a rebranding going on or new content in the portal to make it really animated. Then there's always links to different parts of the portal, where can you find what. But if you're looking for something very specific, it's also very easy. If I'm looking for color, it will directly tell me where the word color is mentioned or where a color content block is available. Yeah, super straightforward. Then let's have a first look at a guideline. And I mean, most of you who have seen corporate identity guidelines, this will look fairly familiar, because it's basically a migration of something that is on a PDF to a single source of truth. Now we're looking at an example of how logos can be documented, and it can be really quite detailed around spacing in letterheads, examples, best practices, depending on what size you use. Then obviously also animated possibilities of how things should look. Imagery where the logo is being used in the real world, how it should be used. Often also examples of how it should not be done. And so on and so forth. Colors, the same thing, right? You know, how a color space should look, the proportions, how product colors are being used, examples of which colors not to combine. But I guess you get the idea, right? Is you add content, you document it, you say what you should be doing, what you should not be doing in a very visual way and in a structured way, because you can flexibly build out that structure on the left-hand side. Then always obviously the possibility of giving people things to download or to interact with. For example, logo packages, and also especially with, for example, colors. Design tools can directly access these assets. For example, Adobe XD or a Sketch or a Figma tool can directly access images, photos, colors that are within Frontify, which makes it easier for designers to produce on-brand content. And again, if there are any questions, please interrupt me and ask. Now, a second example that I want to show, which is not a classical brand management case, but more a newsroom or press portal, is I'm fairly sure many of you are familiar with the brand Bang & Olufsen. So I'm here on their website. And they, for example, have a newsroom, which directly links to from their website. Again, this part of the portal is public-facing, so it's completely open. Looks completely different, but still obviously on brand with the very classical black and white from B&O. And here they're using actually our guideline functionality or CMS functionality, whatever you want to call it, as a newsroom for updating the press around new products, and then also making press kits available for download. So yeah, a different use case. And then as soon as if you want to access more in-depth information, photos and imagery, you would have to log in, authenticate, or if you don't have a login yet, then we have this possibility of configuring login requests where you put in email or whatever information that you would require, and we have an admin who can grant these accesses to the portal. Okay, no questions. Then a third example that I want to show is our own brand home, so the Frontify brand. And again, it looks very different. It's animated. It has video that should be playing usually. The different content you can find in there, presentation templates, white papers that we use for our sales team, promotional items, and so on. And if we have things that are on a campaign or so, we will update this page and let people know that there's something new ongoing, visual guidelines, imagery. And here I want to give you a first look at what our libraries look like in the front end. So if we go into images, and again, as Melanie had mentioned before, obviously here you can target content to whoever is being logged in here. Somebody from the marketing team might not see the same thing as an external partner, so all that configuration and personalization is possible. A very visual front-end experience with the possibility of looking for, let's say, from looking for men, fully searchable, obviously. We have the possibility of creating collections that have some kind of context why images belong together. There's no folder structure in the front end, and that's a specific decision by our product team to not do that. But then we, for example, can also configure drill downs. So for example, if I'm looking for photos, not stock images, but Frontify images, and so on and so forth, you could go as much as you would want to. And now we have Roger, who's our founder. If I'm just choosing one of those assets, again, very neat, simple functionality. If I'm using these assets for dedicated channels, automatic resizing, cropping functionality, where I can say, hey, I can define a focal point. I can say I want a 4:3 format, and then download the asset and use it. Then another library that I wanted to show you is our icon library, which is also quite a neat functionality because design teams often have their icons all over the place, and people just end up logging into the internet and going to platforms and downloading non-on-brand icons because it's easier. And here, again, centralized, you can do automatic transformations to PNG, for example, and obviously we're pulling through directly the information from your brand guidelines, so this is always going to be on brand with the colors. Another very neat functionality we just released in the beginning of this year is our desktop application, where obviously, again, we want to remove that friction between the everyday user and the assets that are somewhere in a repository. And if I'm looking for an arrow icon because I'm building out a presentation, then usually it loads, and it actually does. Again, the possibility of changing colors, and then a very simple drag and drop into, for example, an Office file. Making it easier for people to be on-brand than to be off-brand. Great.
Can you go the other way? Can you be in Word and open the library from there? We should repeat the question. Can you do the other way around as well? Can you be in Word and open the library from there?
And push assets into the library.
Yeah, just like adding images within the Word document and from there accessing the library?
So we don't have direct access in the Office suite. What we actually do is we work with a partner called Templify. They obviously specialize in Office connectors and optimization. However, I think your first question was pushing assets into the library, and that obviously we don't want everybody to do.
No.
Okay, that was not the question.
My question really was, can you access from
directly from Office?
You have to go to the website and search and drag and drop, but open from Word.
With a partner, not directly, yes. Okay. Yeah, exactly. All right, then I want to show you a bit a view at the behind of the scenes, because I'm sure many of you are interested in how to actually get to the end result. And this is a look at what we call the back end of Frontify, so the administrator view. And basically what changes is I have the access rights now, and on the left-hand side I see our power bar. Here we already see how multiple brands can be managed. You can have as many brand spaces as you would like. If I go into the Swiss brand, I can have multiple guidelines. Again, if there is a reason why you want to split out your employer branding portal from your general branding portal, it's all possible with dedicated access rights. And just a quick look at the back end of our libraries. This is obviously where the different assets from CELUM would be landing in. You can push into the logo library, into the icon library, or into the media library that you then reference in the front end. Now, if I'm logging into one of these, what we call guidelines, again, looks completely different from the ones we have seen because there's all this creative flexibility. All we do is we basically switch from view to edit mode, as I'm sure you have seen in other what you get platforms as well. You add a content block, you choose which format you want, you add the title. You can either upload an image or you choose an image that is already in the system. For example, let's look at a media image, a plane. The asset is there. I go back to the view mode, and the whole thing is live again. I mean, we have possibility of marking certain pages as draft pages, so only editors see them, but basically that's it, right? As soon as something is configured, it's live for everybody.
Can you use images from CELUM directly also for these teaser buckets?
We will see that. It's not a live, it's a sync that you do with certain sorry, the question was, can we use CELUM assets directly within Frontify? It's not direct, it's basically a sync where you decide which assets should be synchronized over to the system, but then it's basically live. As soon as it's configured, the sync is instantaneous, as we'll see later on in the demo. Yeah, maybe just a second example within our cover page looks slightly different from our guidelines page. It's changing, so we're opening up the flexibility of the looks and feel of the different pages, but within our guidelines page, where we always have that navigation structure on the left-hand side, it's the same idea, right? I go into the edit mode, I add a new page, say CELUM. I can add, we have about 30 different what we call content blocks. They are smart, they interact with each other. I can add a header. And again, I can add, for example, a color module where I simply choose colors and add them. And yeah, that's as easy as it is to configure and build out such a structure and make it available to everybody. Yeah, that's as much as I wanted to show you for today. Unless there's any more questions, I would probably hand over to Melanie for the details of the... Yes, please.
I have one question regarding the icons when you change the color. Is this just the icons in different color, and when you click on that, the different color is being rendered, or it's just the icon is being changed dynamically based on the color you select and rendered?
The color is being changed of the icon, yes, correct, absolutely.
We do have questions from the remote audience.
Yep.
First one is, so is the metadata management done in CELUM or in Frontify?
Yes, if the sync is activated, then basically you should not be manipulating anything in Frontify because you want this single source of truth that is feeding over the information, as we'll see now in Melanie's part of the demonstration. But very good question.
And the second one is, how do you implement the content management component for the B&O press portal? Did you connect Frontify with the classical CMS, or what was the solution?
So I think the way I understand this question is kind of the front-end view of how the portal appears. Now, the website has nothing to do with Frontify, but as soon as you go into the newsroom of Bang & Olufsen, the CMS is Frontify. So what we call our guidelines component is basically a content management system that has been stripped down, and this can be very visually appealing. I hope that answers the question.
I think so.
Was that the last question? Yeah. Okay, cool. Then, please, Melanie, thank you.
Yeah, okay. Then let's take a live look. And what you see here is a sneak peek about our newest, one of the newest features in the next release, 21.9. It's the option to configure from the starting page where you want to go in CELUM. And we decided in this way to configure the brand portal here. So I can go from here directly to the brand portal. And we as CELUM also using Frontify for our brand guidelines. And that's actually the part that Samuel showed earlier, where the logo is designed, where all the typography and color and also the visual images you're seeing everywhere are defined. And what we will do now, I prepared a CELUMium section, and there is a lot of branding for CELUMium actually. But this branding, yes, we can a little bit define it a little bit better and also add some context here. And as we see, there's already one picture in there, and we can go here into the CELUM Content Hub and take a look at the asset. So let's take a look at this asset, if we see somewhere that this asset is used in Frontify. How we configured it on Demo CELUM.net is a way to configure it, but there are a lot of options, so we can discuss about it later. But we see here there is some Frontify information. We configured that it is possible to sync via the asset via the media library or the logo library. But it's possible to sync like in each project you want. That's just what we did for the demo. And here I see, okay, this asset is exported. It's exported within the media library. We will do that live later. I just wanted to show you that also in CELUM there is a cross-reference. And what we are missing here is a little bit of input, therefore we will go into the edit mode. And yeah, there's an email signature. Let's take a look. No email signature here. So we will upload some new. And I prepared a banner for upload. That's this email signature. That's an email banner, and I have to edit the metadata now. Because, okay, that's actually an asset I have already uploaded, but what is really important here, and that's what we defined when we implemented it for demo use cases, that an asset is there to be transferred to Frontify. The asset availability must be set to available, and also the asset status is published. An asset that has not the asset status published, for us, CELUM, we say, okay, we don't need that asset in Frontify because we want only assets that are really ready for branding in Frontify. And I have also my description, CELUMium image for email banners. So that's the description I want to have. And what I can do here is saying I want to transfer this asset to Frontify. Then I have the option to decide is this logo a media library item? For me, it's a logo item. And then I just save my changes. So, and let's take a look into the library. Not there yet. It lasts about normally like kind of 10 seconds until the asset is there. And now we have the asset here and can take a look at the metadata information. My description, CELUM image for email banners is there. And also other information I would have filled out. This asset is marked as public domain asset. If I would restrict this asset here and I say, okay, now for this asset there is a copyright required. This is not public domain. This asset belongs to CELUM. And we save the changes. Then let's wait another time, the 10 seconds. Let's take a look at the copyright status. And now it says this is a copyrighted asset and the information, it belongs to CELUM. So now yes, there is this logo, and actually I wanted to work with this one. That is the reason why it was actually uploaded. Sorry for that. We also said that only assets that are of the type of marketing collaterals are really relevant. That is an option. You can decide how you want, what metadata information, what asset type, what scope is there relevant for the transfer to Frontify. For us, it's marketing collateral and having the assets published. So we have to make this asset publicly available and say it's published. And also here say we want to have a transfer to Frontify. And now we go back into the, have I selected a library? No? Okay. Library is also relevant here. Yes, media library in this case. I'm saving the changes. And when I'm going into my media library, the asset should be there within a few seconds. Let's wait a moment. Yes, works out. But I have to say here, okay, maybe there is another option here. This version of the asset is not the latest one. I will update a new version of the file, and let's take a look if this also works. I have here also the email banner in the white format, which personally suits me a little bit better. And we upload that one, and let's take a look if that worked also in Frontify. It's also a little bit exciting in live demos, but actually the new version worked. Then we can go into the brand guidelines and use that. So I'm not that familiar with Frontify. Sometimes I'm clicking on the wrong button. Here it is. I'm going into the brand portal, the brand guidelines, and the CELUM. And what's here relevant, because, okay, an email banner can be used, but in this case, I want the email banner also that my employees not only use this banner, but link it to the right page. And therefore, I want to have to link it to celum.com/CELUM to have the people there, and also to know everybody where they have to link these assets. And that was a little bit fast when I inserted the picture. I will show you that again. So when I'm deciding for inserting an image, and I choose existing images, I have here my library options, the CELUM media library, and the CELUM logo library. Like Samuel had shown before, there are a lot of different library options, the icon library, etc. And it's configurable fully out of CELUM in which library you want to transfer. And it's also when we remove an asset from CELUM, or we say, okay, this asset is expired, it's not valid anymore, also it isn't available anymore within the library. You cannot use it anymore. And so we really secure here that only assets that are really there for public use or for internal employee use are available within Frontify, and you only have to do this extra work in deciding where to use the assets in CELUM. And when we go back, I also want to show you slightly how that also tagging works. Okay, I have to duplicate. So I have here an asset, a new one, marketing collateral, as I said before. And now when we say here, we want to tag this one with, oh no, that's AI tagging, with Imega. Then also the tags will be transferred to Frontify. But in this case, we have to say, I want to have this asset in Frontify into the media library, and maybe we also add the description here. When you have localized metadata fields, normally the language that is within Frontify defined as first language, the metadata are transferred in this language. When I would add here some English text and within Frontify I change my language to English, I would see the English definition here. And the asset status published is relevant here. And now let's take a look another time if this is in the library. Oh, sorry. That's my picture, and in the metadata we can see that there was automatic tagging. Yeah, that's it with the live demos. Maybe this is not a sports event. And there is also something additional I wanted to show you. That's the basic module of web-to-print that is offered by Frontify. We will go into our branding guidelines again. So, and here there is this templates, and what we prepared for today is a webinar template, and this is a sketch file, so it's possible to have sketch or InDesign files, as far as I know, and import them into Frontify, and then make a little bit of definitions, which fields are there to edit, and which assets are there to edit, and which library of which library the pictures also can be used. So we create a new webinar. The new publication. So that's our template, and I already prepared a few images. In this case, we said, okay, this image can be changed, and it can be changed with any asset of the library. So I will add an asset from my person here, and also an asset from, maybe you've seen it before, our valued partner that developed the integration. And let's make a webinar hands-on about Frontify. This is me. Okay. And when I just, this is me. Sorry. Let's do it again. So I can also change the logo here. In the logo library, there should be a logo of bricks. I'm choosing that asset. Maybe cropping that a little bit. And now I have, I think that's good for me. I want to use that, and I can download that in different, that's predefined formats normally. And in this case, we want to download that as PNG. And let's hope again that works. We will download that and have our banner for the next webinar. Thanks, Michi, for the guy in the picture here. Yes, that's it, mainly about the integration. Do you have any questions here? Yes?
Two questions. So what I understand is that the assets are physically transferred to Frontify, right?
Yes.
Okay. And the other one was, I saw that some images were pretty blurry in Frontify, though they had a high resolution. Like the email signature banner you used that in the preview in the content, it looked very blurry, though it wasn't. Is this just a rendering issue, or?
Let's take a look at this one. this banner.
Yeah, and here it's fine, but in the content, especially the text is pretty blurry. Did you see that?
Probably must be previewing or something. Yeah.
But when you download the asset, you get it in the right format and also in the right conversion.
Yeah, but you want your users to have the perfect experience, right?
In this case, but yeah.
Maybe tiny, or the screen could also be.
So okay, I have to say in this case, this is the screen, because in my screen it looks kind of. I can show it to you. Here it looks really good.
Better. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't see that. Sorry.
There's one question I, at the beginning, forgot to ask, concerning the interface. Is it a one-way directional interface, or is it a bi-directional interface?
I would assume that the question is about the
Integration.
the integration, and that as of now is one way, but obviously potentially if we have the use cases, it could be both ways. If we're thinking about a webinar template that it is being fed back to the system, there's room for growth, and I'm sure Brix will be happy to get feedback on during the next user group.
Yes, but actually there is the back way, the information that the asset is exported currently, and actually also where the ID of the asset is written back to CELUM. But what is an option for next release is having assets from Frontify being saved within CELUM.
Thank you.
Another questions?
We have 10 more minutes, so.
Okay. Yes. Then?
Yeah, thanks a lot. I mean, I think we want to wrap up by saying we believe that the joint solution of Frontify and CELUM are very powerful because they're covering very adjacent use cases, and that they're stronger together. And I think that many organizations might benefit from the joint value proposition, and at least I would be very happy to hear any feedback on potential future steps for the integration, but also questions regarding use cases, if we can solve them, and further discussions. And thank you again, Melanie, for doing this webinar together.
Yeah, thanks, Samuel. Thanks for having you here, and now it's on me to hand you over to the buffet and to the lunch break. Thank you very much.